Ladies and gentlemen, we will discuss the actual text of the 14th Amendment. I'll explain to you exactly why, if it gets to the Supreme Court, why the 14th Amendment will not be used to disqualify Trump. And we can just start here. Reuters, exclusive. Federal Bureau of Investigation finds scant evidence. It was coordinated. The Hill, FBI finds scant evidence. You know what was coordinated. Okay, so Reuters, Daily Mail, Washington Examiner. You can look at all of the articles pointing to no evidence. So they use scant. That is a typical manipulative semantic charade. Instead of saying no evidence, they say scant because just one day they'll find something on Trump, hopefully, with God's help. But it's actually no evidence. It wasn't coordinated. We spend about 30 to 40 billion dollars. That's a conservative estimate on intelligence agencies. One of them would have found out that it was a coordinated effort by Trump. So he didn't try to form a rebellion. It was not an attempt at overthrowing the country or the government. And you'd have to be a complete imbecile to believe that one terrible, horrible day was a day that disqualified Trump because the 14th Amendment prevents anyone from running for office after they've tried to foment a rebellion. You'd have to be such a um, gullible or naive or highly educated, but even more so apoplectic human being to think that because the 14th Amendment says that a person who engages in a rebellion is barred from the office of the presidency, that means that Trump, because he fomented with his words a rebellion of people walking basically calmly throughout, and actually in many cases the doors being opened and essentially tour guides throughout the building. Terrible day, but it wasn't anything like the average day that summer, and I support why people peacefully demonstrated, but you had billions of dollars in property damage, and you had an actual attempt at going after the White House. We'll get to that in a second. But here, even the Wall Street Journal, hit subscribe, by the way, to this channel right now, ladies and gentlemen. The 14th Amendment Trump panic. Banning Trump from the ballot under Section 3 of the post-Civil War constitutional amendment would harm U.S. law and democracy. And it talks about how Trump's adversaries still haven't learned that every single thing they do to disparage him and to paint him as this monster backfires. But look at the 14th Amendment. This is you don't have to be a legal scholar. You have to just have a basic grasp of logic. That's why you subscribe to this channel, because I have a basic grasp of logic, okay? And I don't see things through the sensibilities of morally superior liberal pundits. I support President Trump because we had a great economy, record-breaking economy. We had record low poverty and record highs in household median income, and I'm more conservative on most things nowadays than I was 5 years ago, when I was the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet, according to the Huffington Post, and the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. So, yeah, I support Trump because I want record low poverty. Again, the poverty rate has increased under mashed potato brains. Inflation is still through the roof. Even that's a whole other story. Um, and you can look, and they ignored inflation in 2021. They said, "Oh, it's a temporary," and then they raised interest rates. Um, we can go on forever. I still think there's going to be a terrible stock market crash. There was a downturn in the market in 2022. We're on thin ice in terms of the economy. We had a record-breaking economy with Trump. We had record highs in household median income with Donald Trump. Okay, what's there not to like? I don't care about anyone's personality. I'd rather have Trump's personality than Biden's, to tell you the truth. But anyway, we had the Doha Agreement, Abraham Accords, first president to step foot in North Korea. What drives me, ladies and gentlemen, if you enjoy this channel, what drives me is I want Americans home from never ending. I want them never to be sent to never ending counterinsurgency conflicts. I want Americans home from military conflicts and quagmires. And Trump brought Americans home through the Doha Agreement that Biden completely botched. But anyway, and other examples throughout that region of the world where he did bring Americans home. 14th Amendment, no person shall, okay, da, 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 and then shall have engaged in a rebellion against the same or given aid and comfort to the enemies thereof. So you're not going to go ahead and become president if you've engaged in a rebellion against the same. Okay, you can read that in this. You can read that here. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who having previously taken an oath, a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or a member of any state legislature, as an executive judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States shall have engaged in the I word or rebellion against the same. And it wasn't the I word, and it certainly wasn't, of course, a rebellion. You'd have to be a complete imbecile to think that. Now, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, like I said, found no evidence it was coordinated by Trump or anyone else. So this was in 2021 we found this, but of course, it's Trump, so they ignore the papers of record and the public record reporting that actually exonerates him, and so they want to use the 14th Amendment. Here you have liberal Democrats protests near White House spiral out of control. New York Times, September 17th, 2020. Okay, you had others in May, demonstrations clash outside the White House. So you had numerous examples of left-leaning organizations, by the way, going after this a sitting president. Okay, but that is ignored by Kinzinger and Cheney. I don't know why. Billions upon billions in property damage, 19 lives lost, and you had in September and in May and throughout that summer numerous examples where um, just here, right there, demonstrations right outside the White House, where you had officers injured, complete chaos. But of course, media despises Trump, and the Democratic Party is obsessed with Trump. So if there's chaos and mayhem, and it can be blamed on Trump somehow, or if it's chaos and mayhem and it's has all the hallmarks of a rebellion, if perhaps left-leaning protesters are committing these acts, uh, the fact that I agree with why people peacefully protested doesn't mean that people who created this chaos are justified. So if there's individuals that broke the law outside um, the president's home while Trump was president, you would think Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger would care. Well, of course they don't. Trump, of course, was acquitted. So that's another point. The Senate acquits Trump in impeachment trial again. So good luck trying to prove that he fomented a rebellion when the Senate of the United States of America, having been given all the information from intel agencies and public record reporting and witnesses and people on the ground, immediately acquitted Donald Trump. Okay, why did they acquit him? Well, you could say it was a Republican Senate. Um, but he didn't engage in a rebellion. And it was a chaotic day after a summer of absolute chaos. So we go back to not only him having been acquitted, but the Federal Bureau of Investigation in charge of finding out if a rebellion actually took place, found no evidence. So the 14th Amendment will never in a million years be used to stop Trump. You'd have to be a complete imbecile to think so. Give me your thoughts below. Hit subscribe. The Supreme Court, if it gets to the Supreme Court, would immediately side with Trump. Hit subscribe. Thank you.